They say revenge is a dish best served cold. I didn't serve mine cold. I served it refrigerated, vacuum-sealed, aged in a cellar, and garnished with a sprig of you shouldn't have *****ed with me. Let me take you back to where it started, the Grand Albrecht Hotel in Manhattan. If you've ever stayed in a place with gold-plated elevators, a harpist in the lobby, and a staff-to-guest ratio of 3:1, you might get the picture. I worked there for 18 years. Concierge manager. You know, the guy who can get you a sold-out table at 11 Madison Park or a last-minute tux delivered at 10 p.m. That was me. I wasn't flashy. I didn't need to be. My job was to disappear behind efficiency and charm. I knew every VIP's dog's name, I remembered anniversaries better than the spouses, and I handled celebrity meltdowns with the grace of a diplomat and the memory of a vault. I had a routine, a reputation, and pride. The kind that only builds when your career isn't just a job. Enter Chase Dorrance, age 34, MBA from somewhere expensive, and freshly married to the owner's second daughter. He came in as the new GM after the previous one retired, Reed, took an NDA and vanished into a golf resort. From day one, Chase made it clear, he didn't like legacy hires. His words. Which was ironic because I'm pretty sure the only legacy he had was nepotism. He called my desk phone once to ask if I could spruce up the front-of-house vibe. I told him we don't use the word vibe when speaking about hospitality at a 5-star hotel. He laughed. I didn't. We got off on the wrong foot and never recovered. Still, I did my job. Until the day I didn't. It was a Tuesday morning when I got the call to come to HR. Nothing unusual at first. Maybe a training update or a new anti-harassment video. You know, the usual performative HR nonsense. Instead, I'm handed a printout of a guest complaint. Allegedly, I made a snide comment about a guest's accent and told them to Google it when they asked where to get theater tickets. Now, if you've ever met me, you'd know that's not just out of character, that's impossible. I practically spoon-feed directions and write thank you cards in calligraphy. But the name on the complaint didn't match any registered guest. I pointed that out. Chase was there. HR was there. Nobody cared. It's not about the facts, Peter, Chase said. It's about perception. They handed me a termination letter. 18 years of service, gone. No pension, no farewell. Just a manila envelope and a please clean out your locker. I didn't argue. I didn't even speak. I stood up, shook Chase's hand, and walked out. But not before I looked him in the eye and said, I understand. And I did. I understood everything. I understood that Chase was the kind of man who thought he'd gotten away with something. I understood that the only language he spoke was status and that he thought mine had expired. I went home, ordered Thai food, drank a beer. Then I opened my laptop and started planning. You ever walk out of a place you gave half your life to and just sit in your apartment wondering what the hell just happened? That was me. In sweatpants. Eating pad CEW and drinking a beer like I hadn't just been erased from a place I knew better than my own home. It's surreal, honestly. One day you're helping a French diplomat find a vet that speaks 3 languages at 2 a.m. The next you're trying to remember how LinkedIn works. But I wasn't sad. Not really. Something colder had taken root. Not rage clarity. Here's the thing about working in luxury hospitality. You learn discretion, but more importantly, you learn how to watch. I'd spent nearly 2 decades observing power, how it moves, how it hides, and most importantly, how it crumbles when the right truth hits it in the ribs. So I started with what I knew, stories. The real ones. Not the TripAdvisor fluff, but the things whispered by dishwashers during smoke breaks and muttered by bellmen while waiting for luggage that was never coming. I created a blog. Not in my name, of course. I called it White Glove Wounds. A place for hotel workers to share the things no glossy brochure ever talks about. And the stories came. Oh, they came. Housekeepers writing about guests leaving used condoms and tips in the same place. Front desk staff talking about being told to lie when guests complained. And yes, more than a few about managers like Chase. The ones who parachute in from business school with no clue how hospitality actually works but with just enough power to break what was working. I didn't post names. I wasn't trying to start a gossip blog. I wanted truth. Patterns. And I wanted people to feel seen. It started slow. Maybe 20 readers a week. But then someone shared it in a private Facebook group for front desk agents. Then a union rep met me asking if he could point some folks toward it. I said sure. 3 weeks later, the blog had over 10,000 unique visits. And I was getting emails. Hundreds of them. Long ones. Wounded ones. Some from people I knew. That's when I realized something important. This wasn't just about Chase anymore. It wasn't even just about me. There was an ecosystem of pain and silence in high-end hospitality, and Chase was just the smug tip of a very large, very broken iceberg. But don't get me wrong, I wasn't giving up my revenge. I was just upgrading it. Because while the blog grew, I was building something else, a platform. A private, by-invitation-only site where hospitality staff could anonymously rate their managers. I called it Keycard Confidential. Catchy, right? You could only join if you had a verified hotel work email. But everything else? Completely anonymous. Rate your manager on professionalism, ethics, retaliation tendencies, and overall competence. No names, just job titles and initials. And guess who got rated a lot? CD General Manager, Grand Albrecht Hotel. Let's just say his scorecard didn't exactly sparkle. Allegations of favoritism. Disappearing gratuities. Sudden demotions. Mandatory unpaid training hours. You get the idea. Here's what made it cruel. I didn't say a single word. I didn't write a single review. I just gave people a place to talk. And they talked. But that was just the surface. Underneath it, I was cataloging every entry. Cross-referencing names. Compiling timelines. Checking badge numbers against leaked employee rosters. Building a dossier. And you know what? For someone who got fired for allegedly being disrespectful, I was starting to build the most respectable collection of dirt you could imagine. This wasn't revenge yet. It was reconnaissance. And I had time. Chase didn't know it, but every unethical thing he did, every ego-fueled decision, every lie, every cut corner was walking itself right into my file cabinet. Quietly. Invisibly. I was no longer an employee. I was an archivist of his downfall. You know the feeling when you realize someone just gifted you your revenge? Like, they walked into a minefield you spent weeks building on their own and started jumping up and down? That was me when I got the text from Thomas. Thomas was one of the old crew. Front office director. Dry sense of humor, wore a vest every day like he was auditioning for Downton Abbey, Manhattan edition. He'd survived Chase by going full gray rock, kept his head down, nodded at meetings, smiled when insulted. Smart guy. The text read. Benedict Hewson sniffing around. Top floor had a private tasting last week. Chase is preening like he already got promoted. I paused. Benedict Hewson. For those unfamiliar, that's like the LVMH of boutique hotel brands, British-based, absurdly exclusive, and aggressively expanding into the U.S. Their first flagship property in New York had been in development limbo for a while. Apparently, Grand Albrecht was back on the table. That was Chase's golden ticket. The kind of deal that would give him global prestige and a corner office with a view of the Thames. If it went through, he'd land on the cover of some hospitality trade magazine smirking like he'd built the place with his bare hands. But here's the thing. Benedict Hewson has a reputation. They vet hard. They once pulled out of a $50 million deal in Dubai because the water pressure in the staff showers didn't meet European labor guidelines. So I emailed my old contact there. Her name's Camille. French. Sharp. I helped her once when her parents visited New York and the driver they hired ghosted them midweek. I arranged a full replacement with a bilingual guide and sent her dad a Cuban cigar from a private club. She remembered. I emailed her a polite, non-accusatory message. Just a quiet heads up. If your team is evaluating Grand Albrecht, I thought I should share something you may want to review internally. No accusations, just documentation. All verified. All time-stamped. Attached was a 94-page PDF. I called it Operational Ethics, Internal Patterns at Grand Albrecht, 2022 to 2024. I had 6 exit interviews that mysteriously vanished from HR servers but were screen-capped before deletion. Payroll records showing guest satisfaction bonuses being diverted to shell vendors Chase's cousin owned. A pattern of off-books gratuity adjustments logged by a back-end employee scheduling app, bless that intern who didn't know how to lock spreadsheets. A guest complaints system being gamed by Chase to oust legacy staff, all linked to fake reservation IDs. And 26 anonymous, cross-verified reviews from Keycard Confidential, none of which I wrote, but all of which told the same story. No embellishments. No emotional outbursts. Just facts. Verified. Labeled. Cross-referenced. Camille replied the next morning with a single sentence. This is deeply concerning. Thank you for your discretion. 3 days later, the whispers started. Someone from the finance department at Albrecht posted a passive-aggressive LinkedIn update about fake friends in old suits trying to sabotage progress. Chase went unusually quiet on social media he used to post hotel lobby selfies with captions like #HospitalityLeadership. I know, I cringe too. A reservation manager told a friend of mine that Chase canceled 3 high-level interviews with department heads. And then it happened. Thomas texted again. Deal's off. H just ghosted the board. No explanation. Chase looked like someone unplugged his soul. He included a blurry photo of Chase standing in the lobby, staring into the middle distance like a man realizing too late that he left the stove on, except the stove is his entire *****ing career. And me? I was sitting at my kitchen table. Same Thai food place. Same chair. Sipping oolong tea like a man watching a trust fund brat slip on a banana peel he himself placed carefully 6 months ago. I didn't glow publicly. I didn't tweet. I didn't even tell my closest friends what I'd done. Because here's the thing, Chase still had no idea it was me. He probably thought Benedict Hewson just didn't see the fit. Oh, but the fit was perfect. It just wasn't for him. After the Benedict Hewson deal collapsed like a souffle in a rainstorm, I expected Chase to go quiet. I was wrong. He did what any ego-blinded, MBA-branded, leadership seminar-quoting manager would do. He doubled down. First came the internal emails. I got a screenshot from someone in housekeeping, we'll call her M, who still had access to the hotel's internal bulletin board. The headline? Resetting our narrative, a new culture of excellence at Grand Albrecht. Which, in corporate speak, means we're bleeding out, but if we all clap hard enough, maybe the bad press will stop. It was full of gems. We must reclaim control of our digital footprint. Outside forces may try to tarnish our legacy, don't engage. Leadership is about vision. Let's lead together. M told me that same day 3 people were fired. Quietly. No write-ups. Just room for growth elsewhere type language. He was trying to clean house. Classic defensive move, cut anyone who might have leaked, hinted, or dared roll their eyes in a team meeting. I wasn't surprised. What Chase didn't know is that by the time he started swinging, the war was already lost. Because Keycard Confidential wasn't just running anymore, it was spreading. A front desk agent in Chicago DM'd me asking if they could add their hotel. Then someone from LA. Then DC. Word had spread, a place where you could rate your manager anonymously, accurately, and without fear of retaliation. I let them in. Carefully. Slowly. Verified emails only. We had firewalls, rotating server IDs, and a manual vetting system. Nothing fancy, just good enough to keep things quiet and credible. But Grand Albrecht? Oh, it was lit up. More reviews than any other hotel. All consistent. All damning. Here are some actual titles from the reviews on Chase, and no, I didn't write any of these. Leadership style, Wolf of Wall Street, results, Home Depot. Fake it till you're sued. A great place to work. If you're related to Chase. 5 stars for the lobby, 1 star for management, negative stars for ethics. Brutal? Yes. Fair? Unfortunately, also yes. I kept compiling. Every new review was documented, tagged, and mapped. By now, I had a full 3D view of Chase's reign, when he ousted legacy staff, when gratuities started vanishing, even when the unofficial, attractive hire trend began. Yes, someone ran stats on it. No, it did not look good. But here's the thing about Chase, he didn't understand culture. Not really. He thought a company's culture was its Instagram page and the quote on the wall outside HR. So he tried to fight bad reviews the way you'd fight bad Yelp comments. He held team listening sessions. He offered $50 Starbucks gift cards for internal feedback. He even posted a video of himself walking the property saying, "We're building something special here." It got clipped and uploaded to a forum I monitor. The comments? "Sir, this is a Wendy's. Blink twice if they're holding your severance hostage. We're building something special" equals he's burying bodies behind the linen closet. At this point, I had to laugh. Not maliciously, but in awe of how badly someone could misunderstand their own collapse. Here's what made it poetic. He couldn't fight it. He didn't know where it was coming from. Every email he sent felt like shouting into a storm with a paper megaphone. Meanwhile, I was in my apartment, wearing pajamas, drinking green tea, building an empire of facts. And Chase? He was stuck in a 5-star fortress made of glass, with everyone suddenly throwing rocks. He just didn't know the architect was me. You ever see a man realize the world is shifting underneath him, but he can't tell where the fault line is? That was Chase, right around the time the email landed in his inbox. Except it wasn't from me. It was from someone who outranked him, outclassed him, and had the one thing he worshipped most, money. Let me set the scene. After the Benedict Hewson deal went belly up, the board at Grand Albrecht went quiet. Which was bad. Really bad. Because rich old men only go quiet for 2 reasons, legal exposure or loss of potential profits. And Chase had promised them a kingdom. Instead, he'd given them a dumpster fire covered in velvet wallpaper. So I made a phone call. Technically, a favor call. To Ron McClellan, the CFO of Lasker Holdings, a private equity group that had a minority stake in the hotel and a very itchy trigger finger when it came to risk. I hadn't spoken to Ron in 7 years, but I once got his daughter into a sold-out Taylor Swift concert on her birthday. Trust me, there are some favors you don't forget. I didn't tell Ron everything. Just enough. There's documentation floating around. Serious stuff. Staff exploitation, falsified guest complaints, forged vendor receipts. If Lasker is still exposed, you might want to do some internal digging before it becomes public. He didn't ask how I knew. Just said, send me what you've got. Quietly. So I did. Not the full dossier, just the executive summary, cleaned and crisp. Chase's greatest hits, no embellishment needed. That was Tuesday. On Friday morning, Chase received an email from Richard Lasker himself. Not legal. Not PR. The big man. Subject line. Urgent, request for clarification regarding recent allegations. I know this because a friend in IT forwarded it to me. You'd be amazed how helpful sysadmins are when you treat them like humans instead of printer repairmen. I read the email 3 times. It was delicious. We've received credible documentation indicating multiple incidents of financial misconduct, HR suppression, and falsified records during your tenure as general manager. Please prepare a comprehensive written response by CB Monday along with all supporting documentation you may have. We have suspended discretionary budget access until further notice. Translation: we think you're dirty. Prove you're not. And also, your credit card is now a coaster. They froze his slush fund. That meant no more lavish dinners for travel bloggers, no more consulting fees to old frat brothers for branding input, and no more off-the-books bonuses for loyalty. That weekend, Chase went on a panic spree. Emails flew. Calls went out. One staffer told me he held an emergency morale meeting at 10:30 p.m. on a Sunday, which, if you've ever worked in hospitality, is code for please don't rat me out to the suits. But it was too late, because this wasn't just about finance anymore. I timed this move to coincide with the 6-month staff audit Lasker was already planning. Every hotel under their portfolio was undergoing a culture review, which meant external consultants, anonymous surveys, and surprise keycard confidential submissions that were now considered evidence. I watched the whole thing unfold from my sofa, Thai food in one hand, laptop in the other. Every move he made now was a reaction. No more control. No more charming the board with buzzwords. Just a man frantically trying to duct tape a boat he'd already set on fire. And the best part? I hadn't lied once. I didn't smear him. I didn't hack him. I didn't leak anything I hadn't verified 6 times over. I just handed the right person the right folder and let gravity do the rest. People think revenge has to be explosive. That it's about confrontation or screaming in someone's face while security drags you out. Not me. I believe in letting people climb high or real high, just so they're the ones who give their fall a proper view. By now, Chase was flailing. Think coked up squirrel trying to paddle through wet cement. The man had 2 modes, smug and scared. With the Benedict Hewson deal dead and Lasker Holdings breathing down his neck, he was now 100% fear, sweat, and defensive PowerPoints. Word from the inside was he'd started sleeping in his office to show commitment. Also known as trying to intercept his own emails before they go upstream. Meanwhile, I was curating my next play. It came by accident, like most great acts of justice. So let me walk you through what happened. I get this email to the keycard confidential admin inbox. Not unusual. I check them once a day. This one was different. No rating. No review. Just a subject line. This might help you. The sender was anonymous, but the attachment? A PDF of Chase's resume. Not the one on LinkedIn. Not the watered-down, public-facing version. This was his actual submitted resume from 2 years earlier, the one he used to land the Grand Albrecht job in the first place. How do I know? Because it still had the internal HR processing stamp on the bottom. Idiot must have printed it out for a Visa or loan app, and some HR intern had saved a copy into the wrong shared folder. Our anonymous hero found it while purging old files. Now, what's so special about a resume? You'd be amazed. See, when you apply for a general manager position at a historic 5-star hotel, you usually try to impress. Chase had done that by padding everything. Padding it so aggressively it read like a business school fantasy RPG. Claimed he'd overseen full-scale renovations of a historic London property. It was actually a 3-month assistant internship. Said he'd spearheaded a digital guest experience rollout across 6 properties. He once pitched a self-check-in iPad that got rejected for being creepy. Listed 3 board positions, one of which didn't exist. Like at all. I looked it up. The International Concierge Futures Forum isn't real. It's a LinkedIn group with 12 members, one of whom is a cat. But the real gem? At the bottom of page 2, under references, he listed a former manager as someone who could attest to my operational ethics and team-first leadership approach. That name? Gregory Withers. My old boss. The guy who hired me in 2004. The man Chase helped push into retirement with a generational shift memo. Gregory was living in Maine now, running a bed and breakfast and spending his days teaching rich tourists how to fly fish. I hadn't spoken to him in a while, but we'd always gotten along. He called me the last gentleman in hospitality. So I called him, and hoo boy, when I told him Chase had listed him as a character reference, he laughed so hard he started coughing. Turns out Gregory hated Chase. Not disliked. Hated. Said he always knew Chase had it out for him. Called him a monorail in a garden maze. Loud, pointless, and heading nowhere. But more importantly, Gregory had emails. Old ones. From when Chase was still trying to get hired. Ones he forwarded to HR raising concerns about inconsistencies in Chase's background. I can't verify his London project. None of the numbers he claims from his last role match what their finance officer reported. There's something off about this guy's story. HR ignored it. Why? Because Chase had the owner's daughter's lipstick on his collar. Gregory sent me the email thread. I cross-checked the original resume and the final offer letter. He got the job based on a knowingly false application. And someone inside HR knew it. Now you might think, well, that's standard corporate BS, right? Sure. But not when your CFO is already investigating fraud and you've got a board full of old money trying to save face. Suddenly, hiring a liar becomes a liability. Especially one that's currently under suspicion for financial irregularities and retaliatory practices. So I added the resume to the dossier. Didn't blast it. Didn't leak it. Just CC'd it to Lasker's compliance department. Subject line. Addendum. Discrepancies in application history. Attached the emails. Highlighted the dates. Clean. Quiet. Sharp. That was on a Thursday. By Monday, Chase's access badge stopped working at the garage. He didn't know it yet, but he was about to be introduced to a magical little phrase that ruins careers. Termination pending internal review. And me? I was just getting warmed up. Here's a fun corporate trick they don't teach you in business school. When they offer you a fat severance, it usually means they're hiding a bigger mess. Chase learned that the hard way. So after Lasker's compliance team got my addendum, a phrase that, in corporate law, might as well mean we're about to legally disembowel someone, things started moving. Fast. I didn't get the whole play-by-play, but thanks to my inside sources, including a night auditor with a photographic memory and zero fear of NDAs, I got the outline. Friday morning. Chase shows up at the hotel in his usual overpriced blazer, Tries to badge into the staff garage. Nothing. He has to call security to let him in. Strike one. Friday afternoon. He's escorted to an urgent meeting with legal and a senior VP from Lasker. No coffee, no handshakes. Just a beige conference room and a folder with his name on it. Inside, a printed copy of his resume with 17 discrepancies highlighted in yellow. An internal report on guest satisfaction incentive redirection. Read, the kickback slush fund. Transcripts of anonymous staff reviews alleging retaliation and misappropriation of tips. And at the very bottom, a 2-page severance agreement. Now, here's the thing. Most companies don't fire people like Chase with just cause. Too messy. Too many emails. Too much risk. What they prefer is the quiet exit, the golden handshake, as they call it. This one came with conditions. He could resign, take the 6-month severance, full benefits, a neutral reference, and a tightly worded mutual parting of ways press release. Or he could fight it, go to arbitration, risk his entire reputation going public with the kind of scandal that makes shareholder calls go nuclear. Guess which one he picked? Yep, he signed. But here's the cruel part, and I mean this with real pride, that severance package? It came with a non-compete, a non-disparagement clause, and a morality clause tied to future violations. Translation? He couldn't work in a GM capacity at any luxury property in the U.S. for 2 years. He couldn't badmouth the hotel, the board, or Lasker without voiding the entire payout. And if any new evidence surfaced tying him to misconduct during his tenure, he owed every penny back. Which meant Chase wasn't just fired. He was gagged, leashed, and on retainer to keep his mouth shut about a legacy he already lost. But wait, it gets better. I got word a few days later that Chase had quietly started shopping his resume around smaller hotels, startups, even a wellness resort in Arizona that promised tech-free reconnection. He lasted one Zoom call before the founder asked him why his name was showing up in Reddit threads with a whistle emoji. You see, by now, Keycard Confidential was becoming the go-to database for background checks in the hotel world. Managers were being rated not just by results, but by reputation among their teams. HR departments were lurking. Recruiters were reading. Staff were whispering. And Chase? Oh, Chase had pages. Worst part for him? He couldn't do a damn thing about it. If he denied it publicly, breach of contract. If he tried to sue, Discovery would rip open everything we'd already buried him with. He was silenced by his own signature. The man who once called me operationally obsolete now couldn't get a front desk job in Reno without raising eyebrows. And me? I wasn't even done. Because while Chase was negotiating how to save face and keep his Audi, I was already preparing the last play. Not for revenge, but for reminder that some men don't need to be shouted down. They just need to hear the sound of their own resume echoing back at them, corrected. There's a unique kind of silence that follows the fall of a man who never believed he could fall. It's not loud. It's not angry. It's clinical. That was the vibe around Grand Albrecht the month after Chase resigned. No emails. No announcements. His framed leadership through innovation plaque just disappeared from the hallway like a mob photo after a betrayal. And the staff? They knew. Even the ones who smiled through his pep talks and wrote "great energy" on feedback cards, they knew. But I wasn't done. Because even though he was out, gagged, and drifting through LinkedIn purgatory, I needed to make sure the stain stuck. So I wrote a letter. Not an angry one. Not an anonymous manifesto with capital letters and exclamation marks. Just a professional reflection. One that I never signed, never sent, and never posted publicly. Instead, I let it leak. To whom it may concern. In hospitality, we are taught that appearances matter, but truth sustains. Over my nearly 2 decades at Grand Albrecht, I witnessed both flourish and fade under different leadership styles. Some led by example, others by exposure. What a guest sees in a 5-star property is polish. What a staff member sees is process. And when process is compromised by ego, by mismanagement, or by selective ethics, the polish cracks. Quietly. Then all at once. I left my post without protest. Not because I lacked the strength to fight, but because I understood the value of watching. Patterns reveal themselves in silence. Today, Grand Albrecht has an opportunity. Not to erase the recent past, but to learn from it. To understand that prestige is not built through branding decks or Instagrammable lobby furniture. It's built by people who care, who remember, and who protect not just the guest experience, but each other. Leadership is not earned through nepotism, nor should it be protected by fear. I was once told that my methods were outdated. That legacy was an obstacle. I submit, with respect, that integrity never goes out of style. Sincerely, a former employee who loved the work even when the job stopped loving him back. I printed it. No signature. Just the hotel crest in the corner. Had it dropped in the break room during staff changeover. I emailed it to one person, a former front desk agent who now worked in corporate PR. No subject line. Just a .doc file titled legacy.docs. 3 days later, someone posted it anonymously on a hospitality Facebook group. From there, it spread, Reddit, LinkedIn, even a private hotel management Slack. Nobody knew who wrote it. Everyone guessed. Some said it came from the union. Some said a board member. One person said it sounded too elegant to be real. But it was real. Chase's former colleagues shared it like scripture. A quiet indictment. No names. Just a mirror. The best part? I started getting messages. Not from reporters or clout chasers, but from staffers at other hotels. People who'd been bullied by their own version of Chase. They called the letter vindicating. One guy said he printed it out and framed it next to his locker. I didn't respond to any of them. That was the rule. I wasn't building a movement. I was leaving a footprint. One that pointed toward the truth and walked away. Chase? He tried to pivot. Rebranded himself as a hospitality innovation consultant. Set up a website with stock photos of smiling receptionists and buzzwords like synergized guest intelligence. It tanked. Because when people Googled him, guess what popped up? Reddit threads. Reviews. A letter with no name and every truth he tried to bury. And when you try to sell trust in this industry, your reputation is your product. His was already backordered. There's a beautiful thing that happens when you don't burn bridges. Sometimes the people on the other side do the burning for you, they just ask you which matches to use. 3 months after Chase was scrubbed from Grand Albrecht like mildew from marble, I get a call from Diane Moreno. Now, Diane's been in the game almost as long as I have. VP of Talent at Solare Resorts, a high-end, sustainability-obsessed boutique hotel chain that markets itself like a lifestyle cult for hedge fund managers who've just discovered kombucha. They're expanding aggressively into the U.S. market and quietly looking to poach leadership from bigger names. We hadn't spoken in years, but she remembered me from a summit in Vancouver where we both watched a keynote speaker faint mid-slide deck. Bonding moment. So when she called me out of the blue, I knew something was up. Hey, listen, she said after pleasantries. Off the record, do you know a guy named Chase Dorrance? Now. Pause for dramatic irony. I could have played dumb. Doesn't ring a bell? But I didn't. I just said, unfortunately, yes. She laughed. That's what I thought. Turns out Chase had applied for a senior leadership role at one of Solare's flagship properties in Austin. On paper, he looked good. Harvard courses, Grand Albrecht tenure, buzzwords galore. They even liked his stupid hospitality reinvented personal branding deck. Yes, he actually made one. With a monogrammed title page. But Diane had this policy, 2 silent calls before an offer. No references. Just quiet intel from industry people she trusted. I was number 2. I don't need details, she said. Just tell me if he shows up to our hotel, do we start bleeding people? My answer? Diane, you'd have empty hallways before lunch service. She didn't ask for anything else. No receipts. No backstory. That's the thing about this industry, it's small. A bad reputation travels fast. A surgically deployed one? Faster. And here's the twist. By then, I didn't even have to say much. Diane had already read the letter. She'd heard the podcast episode someone made quoting it. Yes, a podcast. That letter became the theme of an episode called The Ghost in the Lobby. I was just a final confirmation. The nail in the resume. Chase never got a call back. Never got a rejection email either. Just silence. And me? I sat on my balcony that night, bourbon in hand, thinking about how sweet it is when your enemy falls into holes they dug for you. No confrontation. No press release. Just disappearance. He tried to pivot again. Started a consulting firm for hospitality optimization, which is code for no one will hire me, but I made a logo. He tried a YouTube channel. 3 videos in, the comments were quoting lines from the letter back at him. Leadership is not earned through nepotism. Integrity never goes out of style. Polish cracks. He turned off comments. Stopped uploading. Last I heard, he was exploring opportunities outside hospitality, which is like a chef saying he's considering food-adjacent endeavors after burning down a Michelin kitchen. I didn't gloat. I didn't even feel triumphant. Because this wasn't about making him feel bad. It was about making sure no one else mistook his collapse for a fluke. It wasn't random. It was documented, engineered, delivered, with nothing more than truth, patience, and a velvet glove over a steel fist. A year to the day after I was fired from Grand Albrecht with a fabricated complaint and a handshake colder than a meat locker, I got a letter. Not an email. A letter, a real envelope, thick stationery, the hotel's gold embossed crest on the corner. It smelled faintly of expensive printer toner and panic. Inside, a short note. Mr. Langston, as we prepare to enter a new chapter of Grand Albrecht's history, we would be honored to speak with you about a potential advisory role as we rebuild trust and culture within the property. Your reputation remains exemplary. With respect, R. Ellingsworth, Board Liaison, Grand Albrecht Holdings. I stared at it for a long time. Now, to be fair, Ellingsworth wasn't involved in the Chase era. He was old-school bored. Moneyed, mannered, probably wore pocket watches and said things like here in real conversations. I don't hold a grudge against him. But still, the irony was enough to make me laugh. A year ago, they had thrown me out like a spent napkin. Now, with Chase gone, scandal still glowing faintly in the corners, and staff morale somewhere beneath sea level, they wanted me back to restore culture. Could have done it, too. Easily. I knew the rhythms. The staff trusted me. I could have walked into that lobby and realigned the entire operation before the Monday brunch service ended. But I didn't, because revenge, when done right, doesn't leave you hungry. It leaves you finished. Instead, I sat down at my kitchen table, poured myself a cup of that smoky oolong I like, and wrote my own letter. Short, plain paper, no crest. Dear Mr. Ellingsworth, I appreciate the offer and the sentiment behind it. Truly. But I've found that some doors, once closed, are best left that way. Not out of bitterness, but out of clarity. What happened at Grand Albrecht was never just about me. It was about what happens when the wrong people are given power and the right ones are told to wait their turn. I chose not to wait. I wish you the best in restoring the hotel's integrity. It deserves it. But I'll be doing that kind of work elsewhere now. Sincerely, Peter Langston. I mailed it. Then I got up, grabbed my keys, and drove to a small brownstone on the Upper West Side, Arden House. My new home base. A boutique property with 36 rooms, no social media presence, and the best damn French toast in New York. I wasn't the GM there. I didn't want to be. I was mentor in residence. 1 day a week. Staff workshops, old school training, storytelling over coffee. My business card just said, Peter Langston, legacy, not management. You see, the real revenge wasn't just making Chase fall. It was reminding people what leadership actually looks like. It's in the way a concierge remembers your kid's allergies. The way a bellhop stays 10 minutes after shift change because a guest left her shawl in a taxi. The way a manager protects his people not by raising his voice, but by knowing exactly when not to. And the best part? I built something better than revenge. I built something that would outlive it. A reputation. A ripple. A quiet, relentless truth that moves through lobbies and linen closets and executive suites without ever needing to scream. Because men like Chase want to be feared. But men like me? We're remembered. Thanks for reading. If you ever find yourself in New York, look for Arden House. Ask for Peter. I'll be the one in the corner chair, sipping tea, watching the door. Not to see who walks in, but to see who doesn't.